Your background in tech, that one is very interesting to me because you started the Holistic Business Network.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you tell me a little bit more about what in tech exactly you did?
So I graduated with a degree in management information systems.
Mm-hmm.
I worked in support of software for retail businesses for about 4 years. That was like my first dip into like the IT world after postgraduate. And
Mm-hmm.
then after that, I went into like data analysis where I would support a sales team, and I was going in the back of the database to find, generate different information for clients they were trying to reach out to.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up at another company after that where I was the data analyst. So I was
Okay,
doing a lot
wow.
of the research on the back end of our data, making sure the data was good, actually processing some of the largest data sets in the entire country. So, like all
Wow.
the credit card information,
That's
all the
crazy.
death records, all the like some of the biggest data out there, I processed that.
Wow.
So, yeah, I've had my 10 plus years in IT, and then I left that, and it's so funny, I'm doing the complete opposite.
That's
Not,
the perfect intro.
yeah.
So first, let's go ahead and welcome to the Lotus Talks podcast with another episode and my very special guest, Miss Michelle. And Michelle is founder of the Holistic Business Network.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and let the people know what it is that you do, what the Holistic Business Network is, and how that started. Those are like the really, like the sauce, I think, that I want to be able to start with.
Okay. So, I am the founder of the Holistic Business Network, which I founded over 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that, my background is actually in IT, worked in corporate for over 10 years. And then, like, the economic recession of 2008 happened. A lot of changes happened. I lost my job. I had two little ones at the time, and I was home for like a year as a
Mm-hmm.
stay at home mom, trying to figure out like what were my next steps. And I was then introduced to a company that helped people get more plant nutrition into their diets.
Mm-hmm.
So I partnered with this company and kind of catapulted to the top. I've been a leader in that business for 13 years. But during that time, I've been educating the community on the importance of eating more fruits and vegetables, how they can get more into their bodies easily through concentrated plant powders, and how they can grow their own food.
Mm-hmm.
So that took me on that path of the holistic realm, and I've really been engulfed in it. Like, I've been down a rabbit hole of all things health, not just nutrition, but
Yeah.
like everything, like what you put on your body, like the things that you should do to just, maintain like the best health.
Mm-hmm.
And so the pandemic happened, and a lot of business and all those things kind of came to a halt because
Mm-hmm.
people were not connecting anymore. And so in 2021, I was sick and tired of not connecting with people because that's
Yeah.
what I love to do. And I was like, you know what? I know way too many people in the holistic realm of different, like, they do all kinds of things that can help people understand. There's so many ways to stay healthy or improve your health, whether they're doing acupuncture or chiropractic or have herbs, or they have just natural products that are better for your skin. I said, I'm going to bring these people together. And whoever is comfortable to start connecting again,
Yeah.
they can join us. And if you're not yet, that's okay. And so I started having these events to bring the community in to learn how they can improve their health naturally. And so that kind of spurned into people saying, oh my gosh, I love the people that you have at these events.
Mm.
How can we connect with them outside of the event? And then I was like, oh wow, I guess I need to like have a resource center, a network. And that's what happened. A year later, I created the Holistic Business Network, where we have holistic practitioners, holistic businesses that, whether they're services or products, that are all a part of the network. And we bring them in to help them get even more visibility, exposure, and then partner and collaborate and
Mm-hmm.
connect. So that is our biggest thing, helping them to grow their businesses and know that we can grow our businesses together. Whether, you're an acupuncturist or you're someone selling like natural soaps or natural toothpaste, like there's all these ways that we can partner up and just build it big.
I
together.
love that. Stronger together.
Yes.
That's like one of the biggest things. And I have such a great admiration. And like I said, I feel like our connection was so divine in how it happened, because I had started here with Wellness Wednesdays. So when I came to your event, I was like, oh my gosh, somebody did it. I was more specific with wanting to get acupuncturists to come together.
I love that.
But I love that yours is so big that it even will be welcoming enough for the acupuncturist to come in as well. And I remember like coming in, it was like first setup, I'm like, she has Dr. Eddie here. I was like, she is OG, she knows who she's talking about. And then just the mix of people that you had, it was really interesting. And I love the model of how it's worked out, and it was so authentic how it came together.
Oh, wow.
That's why I'm like completely obsessed with it. Had to come and invite you on to talk to the people and share this space as well. For your entire journey in this space, what are some challenges that you face, especially because what I find in the holistic business space, the tendency is for people to usually go off on their own. Yes. Do you ever find any rebuttals where people are just very hesitant in that space and they don't? Like, what is the most common, I guess, excuse or response from people that are like, no? Because I know it exists, you know?
Oh, yeah. So it's so funny. The way I created this network was to incorporate all the things that were challenges for me. So I've been in the holistic space for 13 years. And I've gotten tons of no's, right, in my other business where I help people get healthier through more plant nutrition. But I've done tons of events, like tons of vendor events. I've done like spoken at multiple places, been on stages. And so I incorporated the things that I find challenging for me. And that is, you know, a lot of times when you have a holistic business, you're kind of like the black sheep in the room when you're at like a big event. Like everyone's into all the other things that are shiny, right? Yeah. But then you say you do this holistic thing and they're just like, oh, okay. So I've really created something that helps to just really focus on the holistic business. And so when people come to our events or when they're looking for resources with us, they know that's what they're getting. Like they're coming specifically for that. So I've helped to bring the target audience to the businesses light, that are part of what we do. And that was one thing I was really challenged with. I would do a lot of different events that were community events, and maybe like 5% of the room was interested in anything that was health and wellness. So that has been like, I see it every time we have an event, how much response we get, really great response from the people that take part and collaborate with us, the vendors. They're just so grateful because they're just like, wow, I've never had this much interest at an event before, because now I've brought them the people that would be like ecstatic to know what they do.
Of course. It's very inviting, and like creating that space and that community where you're able to like merge that business aspect, that networking, and then the skills that we kind of don't focus on. We just go off on our own, we run the business, and then hope and pray for like people that find it, that know about it. But I feel like it's time for this holistic space to rise, which is exactly why I'm so excited to join this network, be a part of everything, and help in any way that I can. And genuinely, because what's even funnier, I remember both of us finding that we're like Jamaican background, right? So it's like naturally the spirit that we have to want to really like elevate this space. It's very deeply rooted and passionate
in who we are
for both spaces. And I love how organic it was for you. I used to actually be in Western medicine. So when I was like 15, I started volunteering in the hospital. And then that ignited the journey into Western medicine. And I studied for like 10 years after that until I was 25. And I lost my older brother, and that was the moment where I was like, look, I know I can do this, but do I want to do this? And I was working in the ER, and I would be like, if only people knew that you just have to eat better. If they only knew that like you can go see a chiropractor, you don't have to treat the ER like it's your primary care physician, right? And COVID came shortly after I quit, so that was a rude awakening for a lot of people as well. But after COVID, I feel like this gave an advantage to the holistic side. Because now people were trying to take care of themselves outside of what everybody already knew or what they were exposed to. So this is where I'm like, all right, guys, it's time for these soldiers to rise and really, be steadfast and take ground into knowing that, yes, it will be a little difficult, but there's definitely a space for us to thrive and exist in this realm.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And it's so funny because, I don't know, some people, I see what happens as entrepreneurs, whether you're in a holistic space or not, we tend to work in silos. So we're like in our little bubble, right? Working by ourselves when there's so many people we could connect with and collaborate or partner with to expand what we're doing even further. So we're doing less work. That's my thing. I just want people to do less work, but grow even bigger.
Work smart, not hard.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And then for me, I don't feel like anyone is competition. There's so many people out there. There's so many people that may gravitate to one person versus the other. There's so much abundance out there when it comes to helping people that I never see like this competitive side of business where some people may, and that's what I think really unites us in what my network is, because it's just like, no, I can have multiple chiropractors. Everyone's different. Like someone may gravitate to you that may not want to be with that person, but that doesn't mean you guys can't partner up or do something together.
Of course.
And get the word out there of how good chiropractic is, or acupuncture, or any of those
the
things.
Lifestyle, right? Because it's definitely about promoting the lifestyle.
Yes.
And I think there is an unspoken agreement amongst all of these practitioners that understands that. I just like that we have that space, and that if we can also come together and show this idea of community amongst each other and just enhancing the lifestyle by sharing what you do, who you're around, you're helping the world to be a better place, right? Absolutely. And that's the goal, right? Yes. Because all it is just exposing these people. And what I love in this time or day and age with COVID and separating and just the isolation, plus the technological advances where there is lack of connection, like human interaction and connection. Yes. This holistic space provides that avenue for people to be able to say, hey, let me look a little inward. Let me go ahead and connect. Like you said, you can have multiple chiropractors or practitioners in whichever field, but then you get to decide who works with you well, and then still ignite that intuitive sense within the person, that connection that you don't really think about. It's usually robotic day to day. Yeah. And so now it's like actually very much more intimate and personable for people, but still on a range of knowing that we exist within the community, because there's no hard feelings to be like, oh, you're with Dr. Eddie, I love him. Exactly. Great guy, And then there was another chiropractor that I had actually met at your event. Stefan had invited me, and he went to go see the chiropractor, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, Yeah. So being able to have that space, I think, is beautiful, because you're definitely opening up an avenue within the mind that people don't think about and don't realize that they actually kind of need. Yes. But they're so mundane in the life of how it's set up that opening up a space in this holistic network is going to be huge. That's why I'm like, I love this idea, holistic business network to the stars and the moon, and like, let's just grow everywhere. You mentioned at the event that you have this in different states as well. What other states do you have the Holistic Business Network?
So we are in, I believe, 7 different states right now. So we're in California, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., Maryland. Who am I missing? I'm missing 2 other places. What are the other states? Tennessee. Where else? Oh my gosh.
I'm like, there's 50 states to think about off
rip.
But
we actually have a huge push that we're going to be doing, and so by the end of September, we're hoping to be in all 50 states.
Ooh.
And having chapter organizers in all 50 states, so that, and we're now international, because we now have a member that is in Canada.
Okay.
So she recently signed up. She was actually at the Miami event.
Who was it?
Miriam. She was asking us how to get home and asking if she should take the bus.
Oh, yes.
Were you there?
I think so.
She was from Canada. She was just visiting, and she is studying to become a naturopathic doctor.
I love this.
I was like, so perfect. And she's also a hypnotherapist.
I do remember her.
She recently joined because she's planning to move to Miami.
Okay.
So she's like, this is perfect. And we actually had a special last month, this month, where I'm partnered also with a magazine, a wellness magazine called Feel Well Magazine. And so anyone who did sign up last week up until this past Saturday would be featured in the magazine.
Oh, I love that.
So we had a bunch of memberships pour in for that, and Miriam was like, that is so perfect because I'm planning to move to Miami and I'll be in a magazine and that's really like highlighted in Miami.
Yes.
So it was like a perfect fit.
And I feel like giving this space to people, and it's like that highlight to just remind them that what you're doing is not going unseen. It is still very important that you show up and you're in a space to serve, and you should be celebrated for these things. Feel Well, I saw them there and I was like, I feel like I manifested this entire space because as somebody coming out very fresh and new, I just finished with Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So I'm studying for my boards right now. I passed my first one 2 Fridays ago, so I'm studying for the next. Thank you so much.
So
I'm like,
in the space, like,
right?
You're gonna be so good.
Thank you so much. But being able to have that and highlight and share with more people and get them out there, make them feel special, welcome, show them that marketing aspect of it, because I feel like, especially with acupuncturists, it's like so easy for people to call them a quack. They don't understand these things, and I'm like, this is where conversation is so much like so important and so much needed, because people just don't understand. They've just been told a certain thing, trained or programmed or conditioned to be a certain way when it comes to their health. I got into coaching recently, and one of the pillars is health for me, and I remember asking my client to give me where she stands right with health, and instantly the only thing she could think about was the medication aspect of it. That was it.
Oh, wow.
Not even about working out, not even about diet, nothing to encompass the entire body. It was just all that, right? And she's based out of Alabama, I believe it is. So just, we're in Florida. She's in a different state. Things are very different. The accessibility to a lot is very limited. And just seeing how the conditioning in a state like that, for her to just think that health is only the medication that she would be on. I'm like, if you can find an acupuncturist there, go find one. A chiropractor, go find one. Like, having these conversations so that she can think outside of the box and heal herself with these modalities. She just needs to know. And so I remember that same little girl in the ER that was like, I wish people just knew. Now, being able to use the Lotus Talks podcast to expose more conversation about these things, people's journey. Important. Very important to have that Feel Well magazine, the Holistic Business Network. It's like everything's in a way tying in. And so that's where I'm like, oh, this is
beautiful. Everywhere.
That's it, right?
Planting seeds
Plant
everywhere.
the seeds and God does the rest.
Exactly.
That's it.
So I'm going to share my acupuncture story.
Okay. This is going to be really fun.
So acupuncture really blew my mind. So 4 years ago, I was suffering from this allergy where randomly my face would just swell up. And I was going to an allergist for 3 years. And she was just like, oh, it's idiopathic. We can't say what it is. It's not the environment. It's not what you're eating. It's like, there's no determinant. And I'm like, really? For 3 years. Then I decided, let me go to a friend of mine who's an acupuncturist for the first time. I've never did acupuncture prior. And I was like, let me see if he could figure it out. I go to him within 10 minutes. He figures out why I'm having this allergy. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, are you kidding me? And then took it even further. It was multiple things. And one of them was actually like the metal cups I drink out of. I have like a metal allergy. And at times, if something has like a reaction to the metal cup or a reaction, my face will swell up. So I was like, oh my gosh.
This is so interesting.
Like in 10 minutes, after 3 years of going to an allergist, and that was the day I said, oh no, I will never step foot in an allergist's office again. That was a waste of my time. 3 years down the drain. I went to my friend who's an acupuncturist. He figured it out in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That is powerful.
Very powerful, because a lot of the times the way that people are trained or programmed in the medical field is either prescriptions, tests, but what I love about the Eastern philosophy when dealing with Chinese medicine is we're looking at you, we're literally looking at your tongue to diagnose, taking pulses, which correlate to a whole organ theory, and then there's certain elements that are associated with these things. So we become like this detective that's very unique to your pattern, right? And so, there's this average that Western follows, you know? So, okay, if it's a certain thing, then it's not the system, it's you, right? And sorry, it's idiopathic. We can't really figure it out because their training is only so limited versus acupuncture that goes really into, okay, your body, let's see how are these channels and the energy moving throughout your body. Where is it coming from? Okay, now that I know it's coming from here, what are you doing in your life? Let's now trigger the thought of what's your day-to-day look like. Okay, and then I can make the association. It's almost like playing house.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
That show with House, and he'd literally figure out stuff where it was like this guy taking Tic Tacs. Oh man, this is because, you know, like he would link those things. And I always found that show so fascinating. And I feel like I get to work like that in problem solving, critical thinking, all these skills that I love to use with acupuncture and Chinese medicine.
And the thing about those practices is they've been used for thousands of years. That is like what people were using before they were actual hospitals, right?
Exactly.
Like
it's just westernized now.
Traditional medicine has only been around for about, 90 years or maybe 100 years, where they started with the pharmaceuticals and all those things. I'm just amazed at how, like, our whole mindset has been changed to the natural ways to do things versus now we rely on
medications, right? Because here we are in a capitalist country, and so pharmaceuticals can't patent nature, right? So what they do is they extract and they synthesize and then they market it, but then you have all these side effects, right? Versus if you just go to the root, right?
Exactly.
The root cause in the person, the root of the earth and the herbs that, you know, got designed for us. And you can use those and follow the pattern that your body is showing. You know, each of these herbs was studied from a great master, right? And so writing all this down, I feel like this grand appreciation to be able to actually use it. And we've fallen so far off from being able to do that. But it's funny because this is the next section that I'm studying for the next board. So it's the herbs individually, and then you can actually create a formula, right? So each of these herbs, they have a specific taste, a specific temperature, and a specific meridian. So the way that we are, supposed to use these is by assessing the pattern that you have. Let's say you were more on the warmer side, right? I wouldn't want to make you more warm, so I would find an herb that would be cooler. The next thing is, okay, well, which channel is that on? Right? Is it in your spleen channel? Then I'm going to use one that is going to go to the spleen channel, right? And then based on the taste is kind of what the property would be. So if it was something that was, let's say, acrid or pungent, right? Or it can be aromatic, it's going to have more of a drying effect. So let's say you had like this dampness, right? Where we needed to get rid of like more of the moisture in your body, then we would use that versus if you had something where you didn't have enough fluid in your body, we wouldn't use that because that would dry you up even more, right? So we use this like common sense to treat you with the nature of the actual herb, right? It's beautiful. And then when we go into like a formula, we have formulas that they'll have like the chief herb, they'll have the deputy. So like now we're going by the dosage of like, okay, which one is going to be the main functioning herb, and then the ones that can supplement or supply so that it can be very unique to taking care of all aspects of that, right? So this is where the beauty of like, you know, chemistry was one of my favorite subjects. I loved the problem solving. I know, not contrary to popular belief. I loved that. I loved orgo and then biochemistry, which I find so fascinating that when I talk to old colleagues about going into the nutrition aspect of medicine, it's just like over their head because they're not trained or conditioned to understand that. And it's like this program, and I'm like, you know, you studied biochemistry and you're going to tell me that the nutrients and the food that you put into your body has no effect? Right. Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And I'm like, make it make sense, guys, right? And so this is where I like the more independent thought and being able to assess the body or have a tool or guide or map of understanding, okay, when I look at your tongue, this is what it's telling me. I'm taking an assessment of you. I'm checking the pulses. And this gives like a physical interaction, right? Between the two people. You can read the energy, you know, because now you're trained. I've had, for my own experience in my clinic, you know, they joked around and they called me the dragon in the clinic, right? And this is because you really couldn't get anything past me. I think I was definitely designed and made for being in this space.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I didn't see it as a young girl because I only knew and was exposed to the Western and doctor.
Yeah.
It's funny because I've had people that lie to other people and they'll tell them some excuse. And then I get into the room, maybe their third treatment around, and I'm like, something's not adding up if you're not getting better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me go through and see what has already been said, the assessment, what diagnosis and pattern. Let me go and have a conversation with you, check the pulse. And there's just something in there that's like, I can tell that something's off or wrong. And then at that moment, it's like the spotlight's on them, but they're there for the help and nothing else is working. That they're like, ugh,
They have to admit.
I admit I lied about this. And for me, it comes easy in the room with people because I think, it's non-judgmental, it's non-biased. Like I would never throw anything. We're here for your healing and I'm just here to facilitate that. Let's just push everything and those feelings to the side because
Right.
all it is that.
Mm-hmm.
And let's get to the root cause. And so I love that because the kids that would come into the clinic too, off rip, liked me. And it was so funny because they would try other people. They'd be really hesitant to work with them. And then they would call me back into the room to work with them again. And I loved that because I think that the confidence and understanding what I was doing
Yeah.
really allowed me to be a good practitioner, right? And
That's a gift right there.
it is,
Mm-hmm.
it's genuinely a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that same year I lost my brother, I read this book, The Purpose Path by Nicholas Pierce. I've mentioned it in almost all of my podcasts, but it's such a great book because it talked about you doing something because it ignited you versus for the money, right? And
Right.
so I was like a young girl and gifted and magnet, like I was the little pupil, apple of the eye of my family.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like everybody thought I was just their retirement plan. And then the first thing that they thought of was like, be a doctor, it's money, right? But I always had this space where I was like, even though I could do this, I don't want to do this. There was just still something that was ever seeking, right? And I try to explain this to my family where, I've had past relationships and I've broken up and they're like, you should have been with this. And I'm like, you don't understand. There's like such a calling and desire within me that I knew that wasn't serving me. It did for the moment it was, but I knew God was like kind of pulling me towards a different space. And I never felt that fulfillment in purpose until I went to the acupuncture school and I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Look at that.
Right? And so that feeling and sharing my testimony with people is where I hope to inspire them because there's so many people that are stuck in their ways. They're so miserable. And I'm like, this is the energy that we need to share with everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And once they understand it, they understand that their energy is like a bank. And then you're going to be more cautious about how you spend. I'm going to teach you how to budget that.
Yeah.
And then you can make a conscious decision where now you know where that energy is going, how you can control it. And if you don't care, then that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
My only role is to plant the seed. And then if you keep coming back, then we know that something's working or it's got to
Right.
give, right? So
That is
the
so
whole
good.
space.
That is so good. And the fact that despite all the pressures from like family and friends for them to put you in the box that they wanted to put you in.
The
you
black
went,
sheep for sure.
You went with your gut. And you were like,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm going to continue to pursue until I feel it.
Yeah.
And you felt it when you, I love that.
Yeah. It's such an
Passion and
interesting
purpose.
space. Like, and I find too that one of the things that I want to be able to dismiss is acupuncture being like the last line of defense, right? Like, why isn't it something that you first try and if it doesn't work, then go to Western?
Exactly.
Because it's less stress on the body,
Mhm.
right? So many people suffer and do so many invasive things that if you just come in,
Oh my gosh.
they're so scared because it's like needles and this
No.
idea. And I'm like, it's so easy, guys.
I didn't even know about pulse reading.
Yeah.
When I went and I had my pulse reading done by an acupuncturist, I was amazed.
Yeah.
I was like, and I'm one of those people, if I know of something that works or is really good, I start telling everyone about it. The year that I figured out what was going on with my allergy, I was telling everyone about acupuncture.
It was
I
the
was
rave.
like, stop going to your traditional doctor because they're not helping you. Like, they didn't help me. Try an acupuncturist.
I
And then
love
I was
this.
like, go do a pulse reading. They can hear all the things happening in your body. Like, it's incredible.
I could tell if somebody's pregnant by their pulse. Yeah. There's like a specific pulse. It's either they're ovulating or like they're on their period or menstruating, or that they are pregnant, right? And I have to give all props to my mentor in school, who was Dr. Wong. We had a bunch of different teachers that were from China, but Dr. Wong, a special place in my heart. He was the one that saw me and told me if I focused and did really well, that he saw me being a really good practitioner, right? And that kind of ignited me. But to see how this man has worked through so many different disease amongst people, simple things like their pregnancies, children, I'm so grateful for somebody that genuinely cares about this, has walked the path. And that's where I had to have the conversation with myself and an agreement to say, you have to honor this space too, because if people are going to come to you for help and advice, and this is something that you want to do in serving or helping, you need to have this down to the T, understanding the foundations, understanding how this all works, and living that space, you know? So my whole lifestyle shifted. I had already had this idea or desire to like go to the gym and get better, but then understanding how energy worked and where I was spending it, how to conserve it, and just be mindful. I feel like I've elevated in the spiritual realm for sure, and just seeing people here, I feel like I'm an observer, but it gives me that ability to reflect or mirror for them in the way that they've never had that space. And I think that's one of my most fulfilling things, is I can do something that not many people can do, and that is unique for you, and then I'm going to help you, because I'm like, you have a problem, I have the answer. Any problem that you have, I'm like, I can find out a solution. It's just whether or not you want to. And then, you know, my goal is to empower that person, and so that they can grow strong in their spirit enough to take it on for themselves. And I feel like that's really what I'm called to do, and other people should try to strive and do. It may not be through Chinese medicine, but whatever modality that they're using. And you see people doing that, but then they kind of get stuck in a system that wasn't really structured for them to thrive in the way that I am, right? So, yeah, I have this desire to help. You know, like, look at how many people go to school for medicine. But look at how the system has literally exhausted their energy. When I was reading that book, top people to commit suicide were doctors, veterinarians, dentists, doctors, and, you know, lawyers were talked about their high stress job. And, you know, for lawyers, it's fascinating because they read so much, they have to go through a lot, and I respect them so much for that. But unless you're really wanting to go into that space and that desire, it's like, have a good understanding. But when you go into purpose, you know, I have a friend that she's been a lawyer, she's amazing at what she does, but now she's in that space where she's like, I want to help people in a different way now. You know, because through mediating, she's seen that there are deeper problems that people suffer with, and if we could get to the root, then maybe we wouldn't need so much of this space to be, you know, handled. But definitely an experience being able to help people this way, and then try to expose to others. I'm like, acupuncture to the moon. How can I get more people knowing about this? I wish I knew this out of high school, you know? If I had, I think it would have been a really fun experience. You know, in my group of graduates, I think I was the youngest in my group, but in the year after me, there's actually people that are younger, and I'm like, so fascinating.
Young people are going into that.
Yes, I know. And I'm like, okay, I want to talk to high schools. I want to expose myself and get them there. And that's why I love the idea of Holistic Business Network, because now we can kind of take this network and expose them to, like, let's say the job fairs, or kids that are curious, and just like a lunch and learn or something to just expose them to, hey, even though it's been told medicine, doctor, lawyer, it's like it's oversaturated, you know? And the school system, I mean, there's a whole nother debate for there. The whole country's in debt for all of this. And then people go, they drop out, they don't even care to do it. And I'm like, you know, so just exposing that information is a big thing for me.
And the school system isn't really teaching life skills anymore.
Not at all.
So, like, something like bringing it back to basics with something like acupuncture is, like, mind-blowing to kids. Funny enough, before I even came here, I had a phone call with a friend of mine. They own a school in Miami, and I've gotten some vertical growing systems in their school that they're using in the classroom. But she was like, do you know anyone who could come and talk to the kids? We're going to be having, like, wellness workshops for the kids to learn. And I said, I have a whole network of people that I know.
I love this.
So you're on my list.
I was like, sign me up.
Students, because they have a school. It's from kindergarten all the way to like 8th grade.
Ooh.
And so that's a great time to plant those seeds for them to even know what acupuncture is. I didn't know what acupuncture was when I was in middle school. Are you kidding me? So, and acupuncture, I can say right now, you were like, yeah, you know, I feel like spiritually acupuncturists are some of the most chill people.
Yeah.
Like, they just have such a good vibe. I love acupuncturists. I don't know.
I'm a crowd favorite, I think.
All the things that you guys learn and, like, how you just...
The perspective,
not only practice
right?
it, but you embody
like,
it.
Embody it. Yeah.
Yes. So, some of my favorite people are acupuncturists.
Thank you. I love that. And, you know, I would... Honestly, I mean, I know we're here. I would love to be able to go and talk to them, because one thing that I started doing was going to like career days. So what I do, like as a massage therapist, is like I'll bring the different things in the room that we use. Yes. I'll bring like a little sound bowl. I'll get the kids' attention. And it's something that is really rewarding, because even seeing like the attention span of these kids.
Oh, yeah.
But then challenging them to go a little deeper, and they're just like in awe. I'm like, I know there's an imprint there.
Oh, yeah.
For them to somehow remember. So like, you know, for me, when I got into acupuncture, it was a moment of like sweet surrender, where I like, you know, I withdrew my application to PA school. Then I quit my job after 4 years in the ER. And I mean, it was like sweet surrender. Girl. But I was like, where did I feel like my highest self? Where did I feel that moment of peace and calm? And for me to go back into the archives and be like, oh yeah, massage therapy school, where they had exposed me to acupuncture, I was like, well, I remember saying that I wanted to help people, and this is kind of like treating them in a way of using a sort of medicine. Mm-hmm. And that's what brought me into the room. And so that's where I was like, sign me up, right? Like, there was already other signs there, where I had seen in another episode, I talked about the award they were supposed to give me, and I'm like, all right, I don't even want to look at the program, just sign me up. And there was just like this sureness that like, yes. you know, took over my entire body to say, you are where you're supposed to be.
Where you were, yep.
And I never looked back. I've even dabbled out. There was always 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But in that entire experience of school, I saw the growth within myself. You know, when I went to pass my first one, they were like, wow, Larissa, we remember how you were in your first year to your third year. Like, I doubled up in classes just to get more information. I took a pause on my business just so that I could really embrace myself with every single piece and try not to miss anything, so that I was like, I'm going to master this, and I'm going to help other people, and it's going to be at the highest level, because that's just how important it was for me, you know, and how passionate I was about it. And to be ignited and to want to spend my time like that, you know, waking up for 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. classes, and then going back at 6:30 to 11 p.m., going into clinics as many days as I could. That's passion right there. Oh, yeah. You know, and I was like so impressed. And I feel like there's so many kids that feel, let's say they feel like outcasted, or that they don't belong. Like, there's a lot of this identity crisis now, and I feel like this is an avenue for people to, when you study it, you naturally are living this experience where you're challenged to face yourself, ask yourself these questions: who you are, who you want to be, and what direction you want to go in. So I like that, because if this was something coming out of high school that we were dealing with, I feel like we would be helping to build better character of young kids that are eventually going to take over the country or work somewhere and then have their kids, and you know what I mean, like a better structure.
So I'm listening to everything you're sharing, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, these are some of the things that are missing right now in the public school system, right?
Oh my gosh.
Where you have that inner thought, and where you question things, and then where you go with your gut versus what you've been told to do in the status quo. Like, you went outside of what was the norm and said, well, you know, you started listening to yourself in your gut, and so many people now are not doing that. Yeah. And they would not take the risk that you took, but you felt so passionate about, this is the place for me, this is the way I want to go. I mean, that is powerful in itself. Yeah. And that's just like breaking free, I feel like, of the chains that we have to what we've been taught. And that's all we know for how many years until we exit the school system and then go into the
and
next
we're like,
level.
Wait, what?
I know. If I knew the
what
things
about these
I
life
know
skills
now,
again?
Exactly.
And this is interesting because, they say some of these things are taught in the household, right? If you're privileged enough to come from a family that has good structure and whatnot, and the school system, it would be nice for them to teach like the financing of things, like how to budget. I didn't learn that until like college, right? And then, okay, let's say journaling or meditating or just taking a moment for yourself. We're so caught up in like the FOMO, missing out, the social space, which we understand too, but having like this sort of balance, right? And I think this is something important to teach the people, teach the kids especially. And they're already struggling because as a younger kid, I think there's more imagination, more willpower. You're definitely willing to try things more as a kid than when you are older and already conditioned, right? So if we expose you to this space where you have a little bit of control, then you can kind of make a decision because, especially with like gender crisis right now. I'm somebody that teaches yin and yang. This is like a foundation, right? And to be challenged with treating somebody who comes in with this identity of something opposite of which they were born or exist, it's very difficult for me to sit there and say, I can help you by telling you, sure, or by validating that what you're feeling right now is the principle. But the reality is it's not. I'm sorry to let you know, but your feelings are not more valid than the principle. Your feelings are just that, but I'm going to help you move them to make a better conscious decision. As long as you know where the foundation lies and you are now actively making a decision, I have no problem with that. But I just want to make sure that you understand the truth of the matter, right? So I've had female come in, wants to be addressed as a he, but here's the issue. I can't, right? You're a woman, you have a uterus, so the energy of your body is going to work different. But you can still be called a he. You can identify however you wish. But here, you're going to get this sense of truth, right? And I do that because this is, again, me planting the seed. Now, I'm not trying to change you. I'm just trying to open up you to yourself because there may be things that made you feel unwelcomed in the space because within yin and yang is yin and yang, right? So within that feminine side, there is masculine energy. Maybe that masculine energy is on overdrive and then wants to take over that. No problem. If I can get you to be back in balance and rhythm, at least you would understand where this stemmed from. You can still operate however you wish to choose, but as I treat your body and find more balance, I think the person finds themselves, right? And so that's the beauty of like something there. And so these principles and foundations, I think, would be very helpful to kids in the school system.
Absolutely.
Right? Especially because they're more bold. Like a lot of people hate to say that, kids can be rude, but they're truthful. And they tell it what it is and they're very honest. And then we get conditioned to like cultural viewpoints or societal viewpoints where it's like, don't say that, that's rude, but I'm like, this day and age we have people bringing drag queens into the school system. Why not bring some foundation and principles for them as well? So that's my argument on that one.
I will have to say I agree with you, and I just feel like our children are in a different place than, like, I didn't have cell phones when I was their age, right? So there's so much distraction
and accessibility to so much information outside of their age. I know some people, don't get me wrong, like my nieces and nephews, they're some of the most brilliant little kids. Like, I mean, before even first grade, like reading, right? And I see the difference on how people are in the home and, the upbringing of how they are. Some can handle that information if they're like little geniuses, but some others can be like wavered. And if there's no set ground for them, let's say they may not have the structure in the home, it's going to be more difficult, and then they can be swayed or framed or groomed at a younger age. And we see so much grooming happening in the school system right now that it's like, if any time now, we need the foundation set and these people checked, because I have no idea what's going on. And then I saw not an episode, it was a clip of people meeting with a school board, and they start reading from a book. And it talks about, it was like homosexual activity. And the people on the board were like, can you stop reading that?
I saw that.
Yeah. And they're like, well, this is what we're trying to tell you. Is like, the kids don't need to, like, what is going on?
If we can't read it to you, why would our kids be
able
that?
to? So there's a lot of stuff there. And one thing I love and honor about acupuncture and Chinese medicine is that there is a strong foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And many times we go through our life through different structures and systems, but not necessarily a structured system that upholds values, principles that are going to be crucial in like human development.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I like it. And for the kids, I always recommend they watch this movie Inside Out, because it shows like all the different emotions, how they can come off, but then the girl in the movie, her pillars, right? And when they start to break and fall down, and she's just out of control, she doesn't control her emotions, because all of these foundations have been broken. So the goal is to get these foundations set back up so that she can function better. I'm like, isn't that a big lesson right there, right? So those are my thoughts on the foundations and everything there. I know we kind of got into
So
like a
good.
loophole,
like,
but
you took me a little bit deeper into like acupuncture and the principles behind it.
Yeah.
Some of this I didn't know. So it's so good. So I'm learning too. Don't worry.
And that's the goal, right? And even for somebody who has not been in school, just having the conversation is where I get you to think a little deeper.
Yeah.
Like we passed my friend over there, Greg, right? I put a book on the desk just for fun information, but it was like to give the idea of how energy is sourced in the body and works itself through, right? Through Chinese medicine. And the reason why was because he injured his ankle. And so the natural response of the body is for inflammation to come, right? So I'm massaging like the other side of the foot. And so I just gave him a reason of why I was doing this. And it's funny because the only thing that they respond to is like, I have pain here. Why aren't you rubbing this area? Right. So I was like, let me paint a picture for you. The natural response of the body in any way is to send its troop to check out what's going on. And if they need to, inflammation, it'll clean up any of the dead tissues and eat it up to help your body heal, because it's designed to heal. So what I'm going to do, since it's been inflamed for a little while, I'm going to massage the other side that's probably tense from holding all the weight anyways as you're resting. And now, because I've just touched the other side, the response of the body is, hey, let me go check this out. So more blood will go that way. As blood will shift over to the other side is still damaged, and so it'll have its room to have the trash or whatever dead cells or damaged tissues are there. And then once I'm done massaging, what will happen is that the blood will now shift back over and do its job and clean up the work. So it's almost like this like little pump idea, right? Yeah. So I told him the next step is getting a massage so that you can actually like flush the entire system, right? Because we want good fresh blood to come to this area, clean up all the damaged cells instead of just letting it stay inflamed the entire time. Then we go into the rice and all these other ideas, right? And he was just like, wow. Like it really caught him off guard, because in his head he was just like, why aren't you just working on the spot? Right. I'm like, let me give you a little method to the madness, right? And to give that perspective and that mini lesson in conversation was like, wow, now I understand it on a whole nother level I probably never would have seen before, you know? So it's really cool. And I'm really big on having conversation, and communication is really important for people to have, because if we don't talk about these things, how are we ever going to help them?
So, and this is what I find with a lot of holistic practitioners, is they will give you the background, the science, the what do you call it?
Credibility, or validation for
what they practice. Whereas sometimes you go to a traditional doctor and you could barely even get anything out of why are they prescribing this? What is this for? You know, it's just like a quick prescription. And this is what I truly appreciate, is because I'm someone, I want to know why. if something's happening, why? Tell me, why am I doing this? I want to know why I'm doing it. And so that I found to be so like soothing for me, for me to get those answers when I go to holistic practitioners. I went to my chiropractor, and I was just talking casually to someone else about a pain in my hip. And he was like, oh, you have a pain in your hip? And he was like, oh. And he was like, oh, yeah. And he started breaking down why I could have that pain in the hip. But then he adjusted it, and I haven't had the pain since. But I was just like, oh. Like, I didn't connect. I was at the chiropractor. Don't know why I didn't mention a pain in my hip. It comes and goes. But it was just so interesting. And I'm like, I love this. This is what I love about holistic practitioners. Like, you get the background. You get that background information that you need to know for why you're doing it. And that way you can go and you can share that with other people. Same way when I went to the acupuncturist and he figured out my
Exactly.
my allergy.
Hey, this worked for me.
Everyone. I was like, oh my gosh, he did this. It was the muscle test.
Yeah.
He did the muscle test, and I couldn't believe that holding a piece of paper with the words on it, my bot, like, it was wild, but it works.
Yeah.
And he helped me significantly, so I can't get over that.
That's really fun. Okay, so I want to ask you, do you have any questions for me before wrapping up? Because I want to be able to, share you for the people as well in supporting you.
Questions for you. Well, you mentioned you're a massage therapist.
I am.
You're studying to become an acupuncturist.
I am.
You're taking your boards.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Do I have any questions?
If you don't, no problem. I just wanted to be able to ask you before because I want to go ahead and give you the spotlight again to be able to share your Instagrams, how people can support you or follow you. If there's anything else that you want to lead into, go ahead, talk to the camera and let them know what your Instagram is and spell it out for them too.
Okay.
Okay.
So you can find me on Instagram through the Holistic Business Network. So TheHolisticBusinessNetwork. Quite a long word there, but find us on there. You'll get to see some of our members that we get to spotlight. You'll see what we're doing, rooms that we've been in, our events, how fabulous these events are, and amazing people that show up for these events. There's all kind of good stuff on there. And you can also find us at theholisticbusinessnetwork.com. So you will need that in front of business, the Holistic Business Network. And we're also on LinkedIn. We are on Facebook. We're in multiple places where you can find us. And I also have a personal page. It's not really personal, but it's really geared more towards what I share when it comes to nutrition and health coaching. And that is Health Coach Mesh, HealthCoachMich.
I know, right? Spelling it out.
I've never had to spell them out before.
We'll link it at the bottom for you too.
Absolutely.
for the podcast so everybody can have it as well.
This has been absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
It's been, when I met her, I was like, oh, I absolutely love Larissa. And then we spoke on the phone, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love you even more. And now we got to do this together. And she even shared so many things that I learned sitting right here. And just to hear your values and how much passion you have for what you're doing, that's what I love. Because the people of our network, I vet every single one of them. Mm-hmm. So it's not just by random coincidence do I have people that are a part of it. I really interview people first to see if they're a good fit, not only for what they're doing, but personality-wise. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm recommending you to someone, I really want you to have the upbeat, great attitude that I have and that I want to be emulated with the network. So that's why when you walk into an event, it's such a great vibe because the people there have been vetted and usually it's just
it's authentic. It's genuine and it's purpose-filled. Mm-hmm. It's the space that I want to be in. Definitely the room, the way that I came was so random and I was definitely meant to be there.
Yeah, and it attracts likewise. So it's you get in that room and you're with your people,
of
high
course.
vibe people that are all about just living their best life.
They say birds of a feather flock together,
there you
right?
Go.
So I love that. So this is our ending for the podcast. Thank you for listening to the Lotus Talks, and we are over and out. So thanks. One last shout out to the hub at Office Logic here at 1501 Biscayne Boulevard, Unit 501. Come check us out. They have sponsored this podcast. Michelle, what did you think about coming up? How was your experience?
I absolutely loved it. From before I even came through the doors, I was recording. I was like, this place is so awesome. And everything about this building is so cool. So this is definitely the place to be if you're in that space of entrepreneurship, getting started in your business. This is all the creative juices are just flowing in here. I feel it.
Yes. So many different spaces. We have a conference room. We have a training room. We have a cafe. We have a whole entire space where you can share whichever ideas, use it for pitches, use it for gatherings, any events. If you want to study somewhere, if you have a startup, a founder, and you need a cubicle or an office, you can come here as well. So an extra special shout out to them too. Thank you so much again.